Property is theft. Today at the Left Library, we're exploring anarchist political economy in Pierre-Joseph Proudhon's influential work, What is Property? Published in 1840, this seminal text lays the foundation for anarchist thought and provides a radical critique of property and ownership. Let's dive in and break down the key ideas in simple terms. Pierre-Joseph Proudhon was a French philosopher and the first person to declare himself an anarchist. Proudhon's work addresses how property rights and economic systems contribute to social inequality and exploitation. Proudhon begins by examining what we mean by property. Traditionally, property refers to the right to own something, whether it's land, a house, or a business. But Proudhon asks a provocative question. Is property just the right to use something, or is it more about the power to exclude others from using it? For Proudhon, property isn't just about ownership, but about control and power over others. Proudhon writes, if I were asked to answer the following question, what is slavery? And I should answer in one word, it is murder. My meaning would be understood at once. No extended argument would be required to show that the power to remove a man's mind, will, and personality is a power of life and death, and that to enslave a man is to kill him. Why, then, to this other question? What is property? May I not likewise answer, it is robbery, without the certainty of being misunderstood. The second proposition being no other than a transformation of the first, P. 13. Proudhon's analysis of property starts with questioning its fundamental basis. He delves into the historical and philosophical underpinnings of property, challenging the notion that property is a natural right for some. Instead, he suggests that property is a social construct designed to maintain power dynamics and inequality. The most famous statement from Proudhon's book is, property is theft. What does he mean by this? Proudhon argues that when someone claims private ownership over something, they are excluding everyone else from using it. This exclusion creates inequality and exploitation. For example, if one person owns a large piece of land, they can charge others to use it, effectively profiting from something that should be accessible to everyone. Proudhon sees this as inherently unjust. He asserts, property is theft. That is the last word of light and culture. It is the secret of civilization, the solution of the old problem of original sin. Proudhon elaborates on how property, as understood in capitalist societies, is fundamentally different from mere possession. He argues that property allows individuals to accumulate wealth without contributing to production, thus living off the labor of others. This, he claims, is a form of theft, as it unjustly enriches property owners at the expense of workers. This idea critiques the capitalist system, where landlords, capitalists, and other property owners benefit from the work of others, while contributing little or nothing themselves. Proudhon makes a critical distinction between property and possession. Possession refers to the use of something, like living in a house or using a tool. Property, on the other hand, is the legal right to control something and exclude others from it. Proudhon supports possession, but criticizes property. He believes people should be able to use and benefit from resources, but they shouldn't have the power to control them at the expense of others. He clarifies, the farmer who cultivates the land has indeed a claim to the product of his labor, but he has no right to the land itself, which belongs to humanity as a whole. Peace 24. In making this distinction, Proudhon argues that possession, which is based on use and need, is natural and just. However, property, which is based on legal entitlement and exclusion, is unnatural and unjust. This distinction underpins his broader critique of capitalist society, where property rights are used to perpetuate inequality and exploitation. He advocates for a system where resources are shared and managed collectively, ensuring that everyone has access to what they need. Proudhon argues that property rights lead to economic inequality and social injustice. When a few people control most of the property, they can exploit those who don't have property. This creates a society where the rich get richer and the poor remain oppressed. Proudhon believes that abolishing property rights would lead to a more equitable and just society. Under the pretext of maintaining public order, we have the perpetuation of inequality and the plundering of the weak by the strong. The entire system of property is based on conquest and usurpation. Peace 43. Proudhon also examines how property creates a cycle of inequality. Those who own property can accumulate more wealth by charging rent or interest, while those without property must sell their labor to survive. This dynamic creates a perpetual underclass of workers who are exploited by property owners. Proudhon's critique extends to the institutions that uphold property rights, such as the legal system and the state, which he argues are designed to protect the interests of the wealthy at the expense of the poor. The role of government and law, according to Proudhon, is, quite controversial. He believes that the government and legal system are complicit in maintaining property rights and, by extension, social inequality. Laws, he argues, are created to protect the interests of property owners, often at the expense of those without property. Proudhon argues for a society where laws are based on justice and equality, not on protecting the privileges of the few. He writes, "Law is the protection of property, and without property, law would lose its meaning and purpose. It is therefore impossible for the law to be just, as it serves to perpetuate the very system of exploitation and oppression it claims to regulate." P. 58. Proudhon's critique of the state is deeply intertwined with his critique of property. He argues that the state exists primarily to protect property rights and maintain social order in a way that benefits the wealthy. By enforcing laws that protect property, the state perpetuates inequality and prevents meaningful social change. Proudhon envisions a society where people govern themselves through mutual agreements and cooperation, without the need for a coercive state. The consequences of property on individual freedom are another crucial point Proudhon explores. He argues that property creates dependencies and power imbalances that limit the freedom of those who do not own property. For instance, workers are dependent on property owners for jobs and wages, which restricts their ability to make free choices about their lives. The proprietor is a tyrant. The possession of wealth leads to the desire for more, and the exploitation of the poor to increase one's wealth is seen as a right rather than an injustice. P. 75. In this view, property not only restricts economic freedom, but also social and political freedom. It creates a society where a few people have significant control over the lives of many, leading to widespread disenfranchisement and disempowerment. Proudhon argues that property morally corrupts both the individual and society. For individuals, the pursuit of property often leads to greed and selfishness. For society, the protection of property leads to laws and institutions that perpetuate injustice. The possession of property corrupts the soul, fostering an attitude of entitlement and disregard for the common good. It transforms society into a battlefield where everyone competes for domination rather than cooperating for mutual benefit. This moral critique adds another dimension to Proudhon's argument, suggesting that property is not only economically and socially harmful, but also ethically detrimental. But Proudhon doesn't just critique the existing system, he also proposes alternatives. He envisions a society where property is replaced by mutualism, a system where individuals and communities engage in cooperative exchanges based on mutual benefit. In this system, people would possess and use resources based on need and contribution, rather than ownership and profit. Society finds in the principle of mutuality a new source of wealth, of equality, and of liberty. The true formula of the Republic is not property, but mutualism. Mutualism aims to create a more balanced and just society by eliminating the exploitative elements of property ownership and fostering cooperation and shared prosperity. Proudhon's ideas on property remain relevant in contemporary discussions about economic inequality, land rights, and social justice. His distinction between property and possession influences modern anarchist and socialist thought. Today, debates about wealth distribution, housing rights, and resource allocation often echo Proudhon's critique of property. For instance, the housing crisis in many major cities reflects Proudhon's concerns about property. When housing is treated as an investment rather than a basic human need, prices soar, and many people are left without affordable options. This dynamic mirrors Proudhon's argument that property rights lead to exclusion and inequality. In the context of land rights, indigenous communities worldwide often struggle against governments and corporations that claim ownership of their ancestral lands. These conflicts highlight the ongoing relevance of Proudhon's critique of property as a tool for exploitation and control. The Standing Rock protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline in the United States, for example, are a modern reflection of Proudhon's arguments. The pipeline, constructed on land claimed by indigenous groups, exemplifies the tension between property rights and the rights of indigenous people to use and protect their land. Furthermore, Proudhon's ideas influence current movements advocating for cooperative and communal ownership models. Initiatives like community land trusts and cooperative housing are modern attempts to implement Proudhon's vision of possession over property. These models aim to provide stable, affordable housing and prevent displacement by ensuring that land and housing are managed collectively and not treated as commodities. And what is property? Pierre-Joseph Proudhon provides a radical critique of traditional notions of ownership and control. His argument that property is theft challenges us to rethink how we view property rights and their impact on society. By understanding Proudhon's ideas, we can better advocate for a more just and equitable world where resources are shared and accessible to all. Proudhon's work has left a lasting impact on anarchist theory and broader social movements. His challenge to the legitimacy of property rights encourages us to question who benefits from the current economic system and who is left behind. By exploring alternatives like mutualism and cooperative ownership, we can work towards a society that values justice, equality, and collective well-being. Thank you for watching The Left Library. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more simplified insights into political philosophy, political economy, and political science. Let's continue to learn and grow together.